The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Dylan Mangan of the Southern Star and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy, and we also have Matthew Hurley here to chat about the weekend's club championship games. Before we get into that though, I'd like to give our listeners just a gentle reminder to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, we have a packed show this week to go along with the packed sports section coming out this Thursday. Later on, we'll be looking ahead to this weekend's All-Ireland camogie final, where Cork are looking to get their hands on the O'Duffy Cup for the first time since 2018. They've beaten Kilkenny, they've beaten Galway, and now Waterford stand in their way. So we have Cork manager Matthew Twomey on to chat about his team's chances this weekend. We'll also get the players' perspective from captain Amy O'Connor ahead of the big day on Sunday. But first, we need to look back at what was a highly interesting and in some places controversial start to the club championships this weekend. There were good wins for O'Donovan Rossa, Bantry Blues, Donnies and more, along with some exciting games in the West Cork Group of Death in the Premier Championship. But let's go first, Kieran, to what was a controversial start to the Carbery Junior A Championship in a match between Tadhg McCorrig and Randall Ogue, where was it a draw, not a draw? Give us the lowdown and the latest on what happened there.
That is the question. Was it a draw? Wasn't it a draw? I think we have to wait to find out. So where it stands first is that Tadhg McCorrig and Randall Ogues are playing in their group game in the Carbery Junior A Football Championship on Friday night. Our reporter had it as an 11-10 win for Cora against Randall's. Cora had it as an 11-10 win for themselves, and their official Twitter account says as much, but the referee deemed it a draw at 11 points apiece. So obviously Cora aren't happy with that, because in their eyes they feel that they've won the game. So the ref report, from what I heard, has gone in and it's stuck with the 11 apiece draw. So the ball is in Cora's court. So they're likely to appeal that decision, because they're from who I was chatting to, they're adamant that they won that game. And there was, as far as I know too, there's video footage of the game. So if that can be used or not as evidence. So it's kind of it's a very fluid story. It's a very kind of evolving story. So hopefully we'll find out more this week. But the main thing is that the right result is reached, whether it was Cora winning 11-10 or whether it was an 11 points apiece draw. We just want the right result here, so both teams know where they stand going into the next stage of the round robin part of the Carbery Junior A. But in keeping with the junior championship over the last couple of years, there's always a couple of talking points, but I didn't think we'd get the first talking point on the first night of action, but there we are. So hopefully we'll have an update in Thursday's Southern Star, so keep an eye on that.
Yeah, maybe they're getting the talking point out of the way early this season, so that's it now for the rest of the year. There won't be anything else, fingers crossed. Let's move on to the West Cork Group of Death in the Premier Senior Football Championship. And Matthew, there were two exciting games in this group of the round robin in Group A of that championship. Castlehaven would have been favourites against Carbery Rangers. So for a draw, 11 apiece draw there to come out is a bit of a shock, is it?
Yeah, I would say so, Dylan. It really was Carbery Rangers, brilliant. It was actually streamed live on the new Rebels Online, so I watched it, and it was an entertaining game. Really, it was a very close encounter. And to be honest, Castlehaven weren't helped with Brian Hurley being missing. James McCarthy actually said that they're just kind of resting him for the first few games. They don't know when he's going to be back. He wasn't back for this game. And I think Ross pounced on that very, very well. It was probably just a poor first half. Like, in fairness, both sides played kind of defensive football. Ross only scored 1 point from play in the first half. And the Haven kind of held their own. They were kind of tipping away at stages of the game. But I think they lost their main guy up at the forwards, Jack Hallan, in the first half. He went off injured. He scored 2 points by that point. And then he went off injured after that. But Ross had their own diamond. I thought Darragh Hayes was absolutely excellent in this game, scoring 4 points, 3 from play, 1 mark. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. John O'Rourke was very good. The goalkeeper, Paul Shanahan, was brilliant as well in goal, scoring 2 45s and a free as well. And we talk about goalkeepers scoring freely and things like that, and we might get on to more in a minute. But Paul Shanahan definitely put up his claim as being probably the goalkeeper of the weekend. He was actually brilliant for Ross Carbery. And to be honest, Carbery Rangers probably should have won it in the last few minutes. Castlehaven went down to 13 men later on. Jamie Walsh got a second yellow card. Mark Collins got a black card. They were reduced to 13 men. And to be honest, like, if Carbery Rangers actually kept Darragh Hayes on the pitch, they could have easily won that game. So I think Seamus Hayes and the whole Ross backroom team will definitely take courage for coming out of this game. They have Clonakilty next. That's a big game for them. So, yeah, I think they were well worthy at the point. And, like, was it a surprise? It probably was a surprise, considering the players that Castlehaven probably had when all fit. But considering Brian Hurley was out, maybe it wasn't such a surprise after all, because Ross were kind of a team building from last year, actually getting into the quarterfinals. And they were actually within a point of Nemo Rangers last season. So maybe Ross are building towards something even greater. Whereas Castlehaven, like, there's a lot to improve on. I think James McCarthy knows that. To win a county championship, but a good game to start off the championship in general and the West Cork group of death.
And you think, like you mentioned there, that they said they were resting Brian Hurley. Now, obviously, he's been out for quite a while with injuries. He came back for Cork's game against Derry and didn't quite look right. But is it a case where, like, if he is able to play, should he have played? Because we know if you don't get off to a good start in these round robins, you could be out before you know it.
It's an interesting point, yeah, but at the same time, I could see where Castlehaven are coming from, because their next game is against Valley Rovers, and to be honest, like, Valley Rovers got a really bad beating at the weekend, and you would think Castlehaven, even though Brian Hurley, should beat Valley Rovers in the second round game, in fairness. So maybe they're saving him for the first 2 games, and maybe they're keeping him fresh for the later rounds in the championship. And yes, it is good to get off to a good start, but we see this last season or the years gone by. The team that usually starts off the best usually flatters to deceive later on the championship. I think Douglas started off like a train 2 years ago in 2021. Then they lose to Clonakilty in the semi-finals. The Bar's the same. Like, they started off very well last season. A lot of people thought they'd win the championship, then lose the final. So, like, maybe it's important, maybe to peak at the right time. And it was the same with Dublin in the men's football, same with Limerick in the hurling. Maybe it is better not to start off like a train too early, and maybe save your best form to last in the last few games. And maybe James McCarthy just believes in these players that Castlehaven have the talents to do that in certain stages, because after all, they are one of the top 3 teams in the Premier Senior Championship, regarded by many. So, look, I could see Castlehaven's viewpoint on not playing Brian Hurley in the first 2 games, but at the same time, Ross was going to be a tough ask, Brian Hurley fit or not. So maybe it was questionable in that viewpoint that he didn't play, but I can understand where James McCarthy is coming from, that he didn't play him.
And Kieran, it's a great result for Carbery Rangers. They're up against Clonakilty next, who, like Matthew was saying, they're kind of dispatched Valley Rovers with ease at the weekend as well.
Yeah, huge win for Clonakilty. It beat Valley Rovers 20 points to 1-9, and it was quite a resounding win. And in Thursday Southern Star, we're chatting to Owen Ryan, the Clonakilty selector, and he makes the point that this is probably the first time in years that Clon were able to put out their best 15 on the pitch. Looking at some of their top performers, it was just brilliant to see Liam O'Donovan back in county championship action for the first time since 2021, when Clon went all the way to the county final. It was actually in that semi-final against Douglas when his injury nightmare kind of kicked off again. He suffered a really bad injury, almost the last ball of that game against Douglas. So he's been cursed, the poor fella, since then. But he was really impressive the last day. I actually have a bone to pick with Mark White. We had Mark White in our podcast last week, and I said to Mark, is it worth putting a couple of euro on you to get a few points in this year's championship? And he was playing it down. Yet Mark White is being given our man of the match in Thursday Southern Star because he got up the field and he kicked 2 points from play. If we knew then what we knew now, we could be rich men on this podcast. But Mark White was one of the many impressive performers for Clonakilty. So it's a great start for them. Like you said, Dylan, they've Carby Rangers up next, and that's going to be some game. That's on Sunday week, the 20th. You've 2 big teams going head-to-head, 2 big close rivals going head-to-head as well. And there's a lot on the line in that game. If Clonakilty can beat Carby Rangers, they're almost assured of their knockout place, because I'm going to make a very dangerous assumption here, and it could come back and bite me in the arse, but I'm predicting that Castlehaven will get the better of Valley Rovers. So depending on the next set of fixtures, we could see Clonakilty already through to the knockout stages if they beat Carby Rangers, but that's a big if. But as far as Clonakilty go, ideal start to this year's championship, because they're facing into 2 weeks of junior hurling now, so they wanted to get points on the board before they're back in football action. They got that, and as well as that, they got a performance. They got all their main men back in the field, so there'll be a lot of positives for Clon right now. So yeah, the ideal start for them, but there will be twists and turns in this group. Like, you have those 3 West Cork teams, and you have Valleys in there. You've seen Valleys over the last couple of years. They are capable of springing a surprise somewhere along the line. Whether they'll do this year or not, we don't know. They didn't look too hectic against Clonakilty the weekend just gone. So you'll have to wait and see how the second round of games pan out.
Yeah, it's definitely one to mark down in the diary, Sunday, 20th of August, because it'll be a huge opportunity for both of those teams, both thinking if they can grab a win there, that it sets them up nicely going forward. So we'll see what happens there. We'll move on now to the County Senior A Football Championship, and O'Donovan Rossa kind of tore up the script a little bit against Knocknagree at the weekend with an impressive 2-9-11 victory. And Matthew, they'll be delighted with this result, won't they?
Absolutely thrilled at it. Like Gene O'Donovan actually said that a lot of people wrote them off, and a lot of people in many outlets actually wrote O'Donovan Ross off. And when you look at the opponents they were playing, Knocknagree had 3 inter-county stars in Daniel O'Mahony, Owen McSweeney and Patrick Doyle. You would have thought Knocknagree would win this game, considering they got to the Senior A final last year. They probably would have been favourites for this competition. But as you rightly said there, Dylan, they tore up the script and they produced a very, very good performance. Like Donal O'Connell getting a goal, Thomas Hagerty getting the other goal. They won 2-9 to 11 points in the end, which was quite comfortable. 4-point victory for O'Donovan Ross in the end. And they definitely pulled up trees with this victory. Like Sean Fitzgerald, actually, Gene O'Donovan talked to me last week about him being Chicago last year for the Chicago Senior Football Championship, and he came back in this year. I think he scored a point on Saturday as well. So brilliant performance by him. And to get him back and to get Kevin Davis to the team, Dylan Howard, like Skib actually have some very good talent there in that team. And when you look at the landscape of the Senior A Championship, a lot of the favourites actually lost this weekend, including Knocknagree. So O'Donovan Ross will be looking at this and thinking, there's an opportunity here for us to go on a further run. And let's not forget, they got to the last 4, deservedly so, last year, losing out to Michaels, who were probably one of the best Senior A teams in the last few years that we've seen. So, like, they aren't far off O'Donovan Ross, and Gene O'Donovan will be absolutely thrilled with this victory. And yeah, it's the right start for Skib in general. Like, they start off well last year. They went to the semi-finals. They start off well this year. Who's to say they can't get to a final?
Yeah, their next game is up against Canturk, who themselves got off to a good start with a win against Fermoy. So that'll be a top of the group clash. And Kieran, if they can win there, like you said with Clonakilty before, it kind of would almost, maybe not completely, but almost guarantee a place in the next round. So they'll be looking forward to that one as well.
100%, like Matthew said there, the ideal start, the ideal start for Skib, because they have the talent in that squad, and we're just want to see them kind of, I suppose, realise their potential. Again, whether they're good enough to win the Senior A Football Championship, we just have to wait and see. They have a really good squad of players there. They have some top class players. We do add in the likes of like Donal O'Connell, Kevin Davis. Like, there's match winners all over the pitch there. And in fairness to this Skib team, they've been there or thereabouts the last couple of years, but they just haven't taken that next step. Whether they can this season or not, we just have to wait and see. But what a way to announce their arrival in this year's championship, by beating a very fancied Knocknagree team, a really good Knocknagree team, like Matthew said, got to last year's county final. So I think this result will make other teams sit up and take notice of Skib. Not that they wouldn't have already, because like I said, Skib have been knocking around semi-finals, quarterfinals for the last couple of years. They beat Donny's in last year's quarterfinal, and that's a Donny's team that had a great win themselves the weekend just gone. So it was a good opening weekend for Skibbereen, and I think the manager Gene is quite happy because, like he said, they proved a lot of people wrong by beating Knocknagree. So a good start, but Skib need to build on it now.
Absolutely. And Matthew, Kieran mentioned there, Donny's in another group, in Group C of the Senior A Championship. They narrowly beat Newcestown with the 64th minute 45 from Aaron Mannix. And it was a local derby that they would be absolutely thrilled with the win, won't they?
They'd be absolutely delighted, in fairness. And what I was hearing, for anybody that was at the game, I was hearing it was a very, very poor game, but a very intense West Cork derby all the same. Like the second half, there was a lot of hits going in, and Donnies were doing well, Newcestown were doing well. Like it was score for score throughout the whole thing. And then Aaron Mannix steps up with that 45. And to be honest, the weather wasn't great that week, last weekend either. So let's not forget that. To put the ball down and kick a 45 in that pressure cooker situation as well, it's brilliant. And it's for a guy that came on in the second half, I think, for Donnies as well. So, like, he did absolutely brilliant, Aaron Mannix. And Donnies have a good team, to be fair. I know there wasn't probably their best performance against Newcestown the weekend, but they still have players. They have match winners. As Kieran mentioned with O'Donnell and Rossa, they have match winners. Donnies have match winners as well in Mark Buckley. Obviously, Fionn Hurley, he was with the Cork Seniors this season, a very good player there. Gavin Farr was a good player, I'm hearing as well. Like, Donnies have very good players all over the pitch, and Declan O'Dwyer's definitely gelled them well together as a team. And yeah, you have that guy, Aaron Mannix, coming off the bench, and if he keeps producing points like that, they could go even further into the championship. But for Newcestown, like, it's a disappointing defeat for them. They came down from Premier Senior last season. Like, they wanted to get off to a good start. They didn't do so. They lost this game. And yeah, Tim Buckley was complaining over the last few weeks about numbers and dual commitments and stuff like that with hurling and football. And that was probably the question that we'd have with Newcestown. Can they fulfill their dual dreams with hurling and football on really at the same time? Like, they've hurling in the next 2 weeks now. They prepare for that at the Senior A Championship. Then they have football after that. So it's going to be a long few weeks for Newcestown. They put themselves at the back foot already. And yeah, it's going to be a difficult group to get out of. But at the same time, they are in a group with Island Rovers and Bishopstown. And we've seen over the weekend as well, Bishopstown beat them 112 to 4 points. And Island, they don't look that good, to be honest with you. So maybe Newcestown could pick up a win there. So to be honest, like I don't know, is it the next game or the game after against Bishopstown, but that'll be massive for Newcestown. They have to win that in the next few weeks. If they don't, their championship could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, and Donnies are facing Bishopstown in their next game, so we'll maybe learn a lot about them in that game as well.
Just on that for a second, before we move on, Dylan, just on that Island Rovers, I think it's worth making a point. They only scored 4 points against Bishopstown. Like, this is for a club that was up at senior level, well, Premier Senior level, not too long ago. Like, that was a poor result for Island Rovers. They're after a poor league campaign as well, and just to go down like they did against Bishopstown, it's not a great indicator for what's to come. Johnny Holland, the selector, talks in this Thursday Southern Star about they just didn't play well in the night, but they have to take the result on the chin and building it for their next game. But that Island Rovers and Newcestown game, I'm looking here, it's on Saturday, August 19th in Rossmore at 5 o'clock. What a huge West Cork derby that is. Both teams are on the back foot after their open round losses. Both teams need to win, because whoever loses here will find themselves stuck in a relegation battle going into the final round of games, and neither team wants that. Like Matthew said, Newcestown are just down from Premier Senior. Island were only down the season before that. So it's all of a sudden that's turning into a huge game in terms of, I suppose, trying to reignite your championship hopes, but not be dragged into a relegation battle. So that's a big one to keep an eye on Saturday week.
Yeah, that one will turn on a nice edge, and it's great for us kind of reporting on it that there are so many, after just one weekend, there are already so many interesting matchups ahead, and a great game that happened at the weekend as well. Moving on to the Premier Intermediate Football Championship, Bantry Blues would have been obviously disappointed having lost last year's final against Canturk, but they've brushed off the cobwebs and gotten off to a great start against Ivleary last weekend, Matthew, as well.
They have done, yeah, and it was disappointing for Bantry to lose the final last year. But as we've seen with Knocknagree losing the final last year, they followed up with another disappointing defeat on the first day to O'Donnell Rossa. That wasn't the repeat with Bantry. They performed absolutely brilliantly and beating Ivleary by 114 to 112, and it was a very good win. In fairness, like they beat Ivleary in the semi-finals last year, so the aim was to repeat the trick. They did that, and they did it brilliantly. In fairness to them, Shawnee O'Leary with 1-2 from play from midfield. Very good performance from him, colossal performance. Kevin Casey at centre forward was brilliant with 3 points from play. Rory Dean was in the team and contributing very well to Bantry, and it's crucial he's fit now. Like, he had a long inter-county year with Cork, and if he's fit and firing for Bantry, they could go a long way, and they'll probably be favourites nearly to win the Premier Intermediate Championship. I know there's Bandon coming down this year, like they'll be still a difficult nut to crack. If Ivleary, obviously, well, they beat Ivleary already. Kilnamatra will be a difficult team to overcome, but Bantry, like, you look at the next few games, they should be winnable enough. So you're looking at a knockout stage in for Bantry, and anything's possible then. Like, they could even get to a final, as we've seen last season. Like, they performed very well last season up until the final against Kanturk. But once they get to the final this year, they have to perform. Well, if they get to the final, they have to perform this year in general. But they've done absolutely brilliantly in this game in general. Bantry beating a very good Ivleary team. And just on Ivleary for a minute, Chris O'Jones, Cork Senior, scored 4 points for play. Very good performance from him and a player to watch in the Premier Intermediate Championship. But Bantry, after a very good start for David O'Donovan's team. And they could be the favourites for the Premier Intermediate Championship yet.
Yeah, Kieran, would anything but a final be kind of a disappointment for them this year?
That's a tough one because it's such a competitive grade and they did so well to get there last year. I know it's very cliched, but I can imagine in Bantry now it's one game at a time for the initial target, get out of the group. They give themselves a huge chance by winning that first game. And looking at their next couple of games, like Matthew said, they're winnable for a team of Bantry's talent, but they still have to go out and win it. So you would expect to see Bantry in the business end of the competition. But one West Cork team already struggling in the Premier Intermediate, I'm just looking here, is Bandon. Bandon had a defeated by Rock Chapel in the weekend just gone, and it's not the start that Aidan McCarthy's team wanted. I was chatting to him earlier, and he said they're gutted both with the performance and with the result. They expected better, so it's after putting them on the back foot in their group. And this is a Bandon team probably looking to re-establish themselves, and they've lost a couple of stalwarts. Barry Collins is in Canada. Pat Prendergast, the almost legendary local goalkeeper. We've had him on the podcast before, Pat. He stepped away from active duty between the posts, but I think he's still involved in as a selector, the coaching side of things for Bandon. So it's good that Bandon still have him there. But this loss to Rock Chapel here was 2-13 to 1-9. It's just put them on the back foot. I think they've Nima Rangers next up in a couple of weeks' time. And we've seen in the last couple of years, Bandon are a dual club. So a lot of those players will be now hurling for the next couple of weeks. So all of a sudden there's a bit of pressure on Bandon going into their next game. But Aidan McCarthy, he's expecting a performance. He's expecting a bit of a backlash after their disappointment the weekend. So it'll be interesting to watch how Bandon go in their next game as well. So while Bantry Blues, after a great start, wasn't a good start for Bandon.
No, not at all, but a good start for another team. And just to close off our roundup of the weekend's games, St. James of Ardfield competed in a county championship match. It was new territory for them, Matthew, and they beat Kinsale 111 to 13 points in their first match in this new Premier Junior football grade. And it's a great result for them.
Huge results, brilliant result for them. And to be honest, I was talking to Alan O'Shea over the last few weeks, and he seemed very excited about this challenge. A new dawn for St. James. Like, they've been stuck in the Carbery Championship for years. They went into the county championship, and they weren't just there to compete. They won, and fair play to James's for doing that. And as well as that, the old guard was still there. Kevin O'Brien was midfield. I think he's mid-30s now, but he was still rocking it out in midfield. What a performance!
Be very kind to him, Matthew, saying mid-30s.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Sure. He's fit out. We know he's fit out. He's an absolutely brilliant athlete, in fairness to him. But you look at Frank Hayes in corner forward as well, 1-2 for play, 1-3 overall. Another one of the the so-called old guard, brilliant performance from him. And O'Shea, even the manager, he's a player mentor. He even came on for the last few minutes. He was even buzzing to get involved in county championship action. So it was a brilliant performance overall by James. They were well ahead at half-time, what I was hearing, but they just grinded it out in the second half against a very good Kinsale team, to be fair. Like, Kinsale are a very historic football team. Like, it was always going to be tough for James to get through that challenge, but they got through it, and fair play to James. And the first win, this will give him confidence for the next few weeks, in fairness to Alan O'Shea and his group of players. Like, it's a brilliant win for them. And just in the other game of the group as well, Kilmurray absolutely hammered Minster. I think it was 119 to 10 points. And that was a big result for Kilmurray. And that was a Kilmurray team that actually beat James in the quarterfinal last year by, I think, 3 or 4 points. So there's nothing between those two sides. So, like, all going well, it could be them two, Kilmurray and James, as to go into the next round of the Premier Junior Championship. And yeah, rematch of that game, we'd love to see that. So yeah, very good start for James's, and they aren't just there to compete, they're there to win.
And it was great too for St. James's to win, because Alan O'Shea, the player manager, is a South Kerry man. So it was a tough weekend for Kerry souls right across the world. But I think Alan O'Shea, to see to play his part in St. James's first win in the Premier Junior, I think he'll take that. So it'll help dry the tears of Sunday in Croke Park for him.
Single-handedly solving all of Kerry's problems. He's some man for one man. We'll obviously be covering all of these games in this week's Southern Star, this Thursday's Southern Star. We have a great offer on at the moment. I'm just going to put the code up on screen again for people. It's in the description. If you do want to subscribe to the Southern Star, become a premium subscriber, you get full access to our website along with the e-paper, which is available on your mobile, your computer, your tablet every morning from 6:30, or sorry, not every morning, every Thursday from 6:30. And we have a great offer. It's 50% off for the first 2 months at the moment. So now is the time to subscribe. We'll be chatting about the football championships again in a couple of weeks when they're back. But now, Kieran, we want to look ahead to this week's big All-Ireland camogie final. We're going to take a quick break before we do that.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast, and we're going to look ahead now to a huge game this Sunday as Cork make the trip to Croke Park to attempt to get their hands on the O'Duffy Cup for the first time since 2018. Their opponents, Waterford, are going for their first since 1945, so the wait hasn't been as long for Cork, but Kieran, Matthew Twomey's team will be absolutely dying to win this weekend.
Hopefully it's coming home on Sunday. Please God, it's coming home, because this Cork team has been so close over the last couple of years, and they've suffered more than their fair share of heartbreak in major finals. The last two All-Ireland finals Cork have lost. The last two Division 1 League finals this team have lost as well. So they are due their bit of luck when it comes to the big day in Croke Park. But sport isn't that straightforward. There's always twists and turns, and I suppose the one concern going into this game is almost that fairy tale aspect to the Waterford story. Back in the senior final for the first time since 45, that's 78 years or something like that. Is it set up for Waterford to do what no one would think they would do, as in win the All-Ireland? You know, it could happen. This is a Waterford team that beat Cork already in the Munster Championship back at the end of April. So Waterford have shown that they're capable of beating this Cork team. But I do think Matthew Twomey's side is a different team now compared to what they were back then. There was a Cork team when they lost to Waterford. They were going through a bit of a rut. It was a bit of the dark period of their season. Cork lost 4 games in a row between the end of the league to Galway, the league final to Galway, the Munster Championship to Waterford, and then their opening All-Ireland group game to Galway again. So they were 4 losses in a row. But to talk about the character and resilience this group have shown, they came out of that and they've gone on a winning run since, and they find themselves back in the final. And it's the journey too, Dylan, that this team have taken, especially their last 2 games. Beat Galway in the semi-final, beat Kilkenny in the quarter-final, two of the other big three teams. So for Cork to do that, they have momentum, they have confidence. We know they have the hurling ability, so hopefully they can just put in a performance on Sunday.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the kind of fairy tale aspect to Waterford season, and if Cork go on to win it, I don't think anyone would be able to call it a fairy tale in the same way. But like you mentioned there, from a kind of Cork specific perspective, like it would be a huge thing having beaten Kilkenny, having beaten Galway to get over that hump and bring the trophy home.
Like, without putting too much pressure on Cork, you almost feel like they have to win it now. Like they've beaten that Kilkenny team who had beaten Cork in last year's All-Ireland final. They beat a Galway team that they hadn't beaten since 2017. So they've taken out two of their biggest rivals. So they've definitely got to the final the hard way by beating the other big teams in this competition. And now they're going to face a Waterford team, relatively new on the block, you could say, but still a very good team. Obviously, they are to get to an All-Ireland final, and they beat Tipperary in the last round. But Cork will go in as favourites, and rightly so. And how will Cork cope with that? Because going into the last two games, they were underdogs. So like maybe that, having the pressure off, suited them some bit. But the expectation will be that Cork will get the job done on Sunday in Croke Park. It's not going to be that straightforward. Like I said, this is a Waterford team, they're in merit, and it's a Waterford team that knows that it can beat Cork as well, because they've done so already this year. But I think that result in the Munster Championship, it's forewarned Cork about the dangers of this Waterford team. They know just how good they are. They know that they have to bring a performance on Sunday, and that's key. Bring the performance. If Cork can bring the performance and it's good enough, brilliant. If Cork bring performance and it's not good enough, well, it just wasn't meant to be their day. But they have to bring that performance. And there's so many big players inside in that Cork dressing room, and big players who know about big games. And I think it's a big advantage for Cork that they have played in the last few All-Ireland finals. They have players who've won All-Ireland titles going back over the years. We'll hear from Amy O'Connor soon. She tells us this is her 8th All-Ireland final. So she knows the trappings of this week inside out. She knows what All-Ireland final day in Croke Park is. She knows it inside out. She knows what it's like to win a final, and she knows what it's like to lose a final. So when you've players of that experience in the dressing room, it has to be an advantage. You have to use it to your advantage when it comes to a big game like this. I'm just thinking back to the All-Ireland final on Sunday, Dublin and Kerry. What many pundits were saying afterwards is Dublin's experience down the stretch helped them get over the line in a very, very tight game, because they had players who'd been there before. They knew what to do in those big moments of a game. And I look at this Cork team, and I look at the likes of the Amy O'Connors and the Libby Coppingers and the Laura Tracys and the Hannah Looneys and even Aisling Thompson and Orla Cronin and all these top-class players who've been on the bench as impact subs for the last few games. They all know what they need to do. The likes of Katrina Mackey, they know what they need to do to win a game like this. I think that experience could be key on Sunday.
Yeah, you mentioned like Waterford will want to use the journey that they've been on as an advantage, but like Cork have to use their experience and as an advantage as well. And I was actually just looking at the weather for the game, because it's meant to be quite wet, and that could have, like, what kind of an effect do you think that could have? Because that often is in sport a kind of leveling factor between two teams when the weather isn't the best.
100%, it really does kind of level the playing field, because it's the exact same for both. Even just going back to the Croke Park for the Dublin Kerry game on Sunday, the All-Ireland men's football final. It was raining up there. It was misty, and the pitch was very, very slippy. You could see players slipping even in the warm up. I was watching down at the Kerry goalkeeper Shane Ryan just was practicing his kickouts, and he was slipping, taking a kick out, and you could see during the game itself that there was players falling over. So whatever it is with the Croke Park surface, and it is top class, it's a pure carpet. But the moisture or the rain or the drizzle just seems to settle on top of the pitch, and it makes it quite slippy. So if it is raining like that on Sunday, and if it is wet, it will make it more of a battle, maybe a war of attrition. But again, I'm going to give a nod to these Cork players, because I don't know, kind of from a psychological point of view, do our teams encouraged to almost work off the pain of what's gone before? This Cork team have lost the last two All-Ireland finals. They've been hurting. They know what it's like to lose finals, and it's a horrible feeling, and they just don't want to be there again. So like you talk about wanting it, you know, these players will really want it. Well, obviously Waterford will too, but what I'm trying to say is that these Cork players have felt the pain of the last couple of years, and they'll go to the well on Sunday, and they won't have, they don't want to be back there again, kind of watching another team lift the O'Duffy Cup after the game. So I think there's a lot of factors, a lot of kind of pointing me towards a Cork win, but it's not going to be easy, because this is a Waterford team maybe with nothing to lose, because again that expectation is on Cork, and that's very dangerous for Cork to go up against a team who probably have nothing to lose, who are surprise finalists in many senses. No one would have picked them as a finalist at the start of the season. So it's a dangerous game for Cork, but it's one that they have the tools to win.
Absolutely. And we're going to hear from Captain Amy O'Connor in just a second, but I want to ask you about something that she says in her chat with you, where she mentions that obviously Cork had that kind of rough patch earlier on in the season where they lost 4 games in a row. And she said that she wasn't sure if that had ever happened to her in her Cork career at all. And something that's kind of strikes me with Amy is she's so positive, and as she says to you in the chat, like she just loves playing camogie, loves playing for Cork. And maybe losing those 4 games was actually a good thing for the team, in that it kind of forced them to look elsewhere, to look within, to kind of take things to the next level.
100%, because they needed a reaction. Like for any team to lose 4 games in a row, obviously something is not going right somewhere. Like Amy felt within certain games that Cork were playing well, but they weren't getting the result. Let's say it was the first half of the All-Ireland Championship game away to Galway. Amy felt like the Cork were playing well within that first half, but they ended up losing the game. So losing those games, like you said, it forced Cork to look within. It said, "Okay, lads, we really need to fix this. We really need to get this moving again," because it could have been very easy for the heads to drop, and all of a sudden a season could peter out. So the response we've seen in the last 4 games, and four really impressive wins, and all in different ways. Looking here, that Cork put up 319 against both Down and Clare in the group stage to get out of the group and into the knockout stage. Then beat Kilkenny by a point, 214 to 213, and that was a cracker up in Croke Park. And then that win against Galway was by 15 points to 2-6. But I think you can trace a lot of that back to the character and the resilience and the fortitude that team had to show to dig themselves out of that rut that they were in. Because Amy O'Connor, she's been playing 10, 11 seasons for Cork, and she can never remember a season where Cork lost 4 games in total. Not to mind last 4 games in a row. So for them to play their way out of it, to work their way out of it, the team would have come closer together, and it would have helped them on their journey. And their journey has been kind of bookmarked by big performances and big results in the last couple of games. And okay, beating Galway the last day was huge in the semi-final. They laid to rest their bogey, because Galway had the upper hand in the last couple of meetings. But I'm still going to go back to that quarter-final against Kilkenny, because what struck out for me was in that second half, Cork were up by 5 points at one stage, and Kilkenny brought it back to a point. And I had a piece in the Star after the league final kind of pointing out in the last 4 major finals that Cork were in, at some stage of the second half, I think they were always leading at some point, but they always let the lead slip. And it was either Galway or Kilkenny always just had enough just to get over the line against Cork. But Cork were in winning positions, but they weren't getting the job done. So for Cork to get the job done against Kilkenny and hold on to a lead in a big game up in Croke Park, I thought that was huge for this group in terms of confidence and their growth and their development. And the hope now is that they'll get the job done on Sunday and bring the O'Duffy Cup back to Cork, because I know it's only been a couple of years, 2018, is it? But it's been too long for Cork, Dylan. We need the O'Duffy Cup back on Lee's side.
Absolutely. And just before we throw to Amy now, just a word on the manager, Matthew Twomey, because of course we're going to be hearing from him just after Amy as well. And he expressed relief after the Galway win, and felt that was a huge thing for them to get over that. And in the chat with Matthew Hurley coming up just after your chat with Amy, he's a little bit more as a manager, it kind of has to be, I guess, a little bit more laid back about things, a little bit calmer, expressing that like Waterford are a good team and they'll have to be on their best. Is that his job is to keep the players' feet on the ground this weekend.
Exactly, yeah. It's all about management from this weekend to make sure that the players are in the best position to give that performance that we want to see on Sunday. And for Matthew and his management team, and even for the players, like, they've been here before. That's the thing, they have that experience from last year and the year before. So they know what this week looks like. They've all their media duties out of the way. A couple of training sessions this week, light training sessions. Everything is geared towards Sunday. Heading up to Croke Park, I'm presuming, on Saturday. So for Matthew Twomey, like, all the hard work is done. Like, this is now about finishing the job. Like, there's no heavy training sessions this week. This is about fine-tuning the tactics, fine-tuning these athletes to make sure that we get the performance that we want to see on Sunday. But Matthew, I think for Matthew, the last couple of games, it's always been a vindication for him. And he's talked about this Cork team being written off and the character of this team being questioned in the last couple of months. And the character was questioned because the results just weren't there at one stage. And the character has been questioned because they haven't got over the line in these big games. But this team have showed their character in that quarterfinal against Kilkenny and in that semi-final against Galway. They've shown that they can beat the big teams. And that's huge for this group. And I'm going to say it again, Dylan, they really need to get the job done on Sunday. Like, they've done so much hard work. The biggest step and the hardest step is they have to take on Sunday. But it would be a shame now if they couldn't finish the job. And I'm predicting, and I feel confident that Cork will get the job done. But I'm going to put that, balance that against, we need that performance. We really do.
Absolutely. So enough from us now. Let's hear from Amy O'Connor first and Matthew Twomey second on this weekend's big game.
It's the week of the final, Amy. The big game isn't too far away. So what's this week like for you? Have you any superstitions, anything you like to do to take your mind off the game, or do you try and get focused in early in the week?
I try not to think about it at all, to be honest, until the whistle is blown. I find that works best for me. So just continue, try and be as busy as I can in work, and yeah, just try not to think about it too much.
Where is work now, and what are you up to?
So I work for WorkVivo. It's an internal communications platform, and we were recently acquired by Zoom. So I'm a pharmacist by profession, but took a job with WorkVivo, I'd say 3.5 years ago now, and it was the best thing I ever did. So I'm a project manager, and I absolutely love it.
Okay, so you'll be kind of taking a few hours off towards the end of the week, I presume, will you?
Do you know what? No, I actually will try to stay as busy as I can until 5:30 on Friday, just ahead of the game. Yeah, my colleagues now will hear that and they'll be delighted. They'll be flying work at me left, right, and centre. But yeah, I try to keep as busy as I can, just for not to think about the game too much.
Because, like, you have experience of this before, like, you've been in a hell of a lot of our Ireland finals, so you know what the week of a final looks like. Does this feel different to what's gone before, or does it feel very much similar?
No, it feels very similar. I think this is my 8th final now. I've been very fortunate to be involved in that many finals. So as you said, we kind of know the way it all works, you know, the week leading up to it. And even on the day itself, you kind of know minute by minute, hour by hour, how things are going to work. So that's brilliant for us. You know, we can be as relaxed as we possibly can be then in the week leading up to it, because nothing has really changed. And
that familiarity that the Cork players have, that has to be an advantage over, let's say, Waterford, who are in their first All-Ireland final in 78 years, which is incredible on their side. But the fact that you know the big day, you know the trappings, the media, what it's like, but even the running the final itself, like, that must be an advantage going into the game.
Yeah, it's nice to know that you've experienced it before, and you can kind of, you know, look to that bank of work that you've done in previous years and kind of identify areas that worked for you and identify areas that haven't worked for you. And yeah, that can only come with experience. So we're hoping that'll benefit us on Sunday.
Before we take a closer look at Cork's journey to the final, I just want to talk to you about your own camogie career, because I was just doing a bit of research here beforehand, and one quote jumped out. I thought it was brilliant. I think it was an interview you did last year, Amy, and you said, "I always said when I grew up, I didn't want to be a doctor, I didn't want to be a pharmacist, I didn't want to be a teacher, I wanted to be a Cork senior camogie player." And I thought that just resonated. It was really, really strong. So talk to me about that. What was it about Cork camogie where you said from an early age, this is what I want to do?
I just was just pure and utter love for the game. And I know that might sound very cliche now, but I just love playing camogie. Just absolutely love it. I love playing with Cork because everybody's on the same page. Everyone has the same goals. You know, sometimes you might go to the club, and I play with a club that's in a junior A level, and you know, our goal at the start of the year may not always be to win the county. You know, people are coming up training, and it might be, you know, to get away from work, or you know, to get away from their children for a while or whatever it may be. Whereas when you're playing with Cork, everyone has the same goal, and they'll do everything in their power to get to that. And that's something that I really enjoy.
And is that sense of enjoyment as strong now as it was when you started off, which is what, over a decade ago?
Yeah, to be honest, it's probably even more. I just love playing. I love playing camogie. I love going to the pitch by myself, even, just practicing frees or shots or whatever it might be. And, I just love meeting people that, again, as I said, want to achieve the same goal, and how hard they're working. And it's great to know and have that faith in your teammates that everyone is doing everything in their power to achieve that goal. And, it's very enjoyable to be part of a group like that.
And this particular Cork group, like, you're leaving no stone unturned whatsoever to get the hands back in the O'Duffy Cup. Been so close the last couple of years. What's it like being captain of this group? Because you're named Cork captain again for this season. So to be captain of a group like this, and a group that's on a mission.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lovely honour. It's a huge honour for myself personally, for my family, and for my club. And the girls that are in the panel this year, it's been a building process. It hasn't happened overnight. We've been probably working towards this for a long time now. But there's exceptional people in the dressing room, exceptional characters, brilliant players, and just all around good people. And it's nice again to be part of a group like that. And as I said, everyone has that one goal. Everyone looks out for each other. And I know, again, that might sound cliche, but this has been a building process. This hasn't happened overnight. And it's really nice to be part of that group. And obviously to be captain is huge, but I don't dwell on that too much. I haven't all of a sudden become the loudest in the dressing room or the loudest on the pitch or anything like that. And we've enough leaders in our group as well. My responsibility is just to go out and make sure that I'm right as a player and, do my job. And that's the same for everyone else.
You mentioned there the group of players, and there's a fair representation from West Cork, the Ciara Sullivans, the Orla Cronins, the Coursies contingent, Libby, of course, as well. Have you ever ventured down to West Cork much yourself, Amy? Would you be familiar with this neck of the woods?
Yeah, I actually would. I have a camper van, so we try to get down to West Cork a good bit. I love West Cork. Lovely part of the world, very far away from everything. But lovely part of the world, yeah. And we're very lucky to have the calibre of players, coming from West Cork to kind of help our panel as well. So it's brilliant.
Like, some of the West Cork players have been very prominent in the last couple of games. Saoirse McCarthy was superb against Galway, but to have different players step up in different games, it's a testament to the squad that Matthew Twomey's put together.
Definitely. And as I said, it's been a building process. We haven't always had, the strong 20, the strong 25, the strong 30. So it has taken time to build that, but it's brilliant going out onto the pitch, and that on any given day, if maybe for whatever reason one person doesn't perform, you'll have someone left or right of you that will perform. And then also, you're on the pitch and you look over to the line and you're kind of seeing Aisling Thompson, Orla Crone and Laura Hayes warming up, and that's an unbelievable boost. And as I said, that has taken time to build, but it's brilliant now to have that.
Talk to me about the kind of bomb squad, as they've been referred to, kind of the coming off the bench. Like you said there, even in the last game, Cliona Healy, Laura Hayes, Orla Cronin, Aisling Thompson, Orla Cahalan. My God, they'd started in the other intercounty team. But to have that strength in depth now, and to have, let's call them the finishers, so Cork can finish with such a strong team, like that's so important now.
It's so important, yeah. And as you said, you listed 5 girls there. You could list another 15, to be honest. And those girls are very unfortunate not to start the last day. As you said, they'd probably get into any other intercounty team in the country. But I suppose in our group as well, we understand that everyone has their role, and some people's role is to start the job and others is to finish the job. And it's brilliant to have that. And while there is a fight and there is a huge competition for places, people understand their roles as well, and they're happy enough to, finish the job for the team, which is brilliant. And again, that has taken time to build, but hopefully we're on the right track now.
It's been some journey again this season, but I want to go back actually to probably just a bad patch right in the middle of the season. There was 4 losses in a row from the end of the league through to the Munster Championship to the start of the All-Ireland Championship, and that could have been very easy to let the heads bow down, but Cork didn't bounce back in style. But talk to me small bit about that period and what you did within the group just to get things back on track.
Yeah, I suppose there was 4 losses in a row. I don't think we've ever had that in my time during Cork Camogie. I've been there. This is my 10th season now, and I don't think we've ever lost that many games in a row, or even in a season, I would say. But we always kept the faith. We always knew what we were trying to achieve. And, even in those games, we didn't play too poorly at all, especially in the first round of the championship, the Galway game. We were exceptional for the first 20 minutes. So we kind of knew we were on the right track. And I suppose the important thing was not to panic. And we just got together as a group. We trusted in our management team and what they were trying to do, and they trusted in us as well as players. And, there were some difficult training sessions, and, things like that. But we always kind of knew we were on the right track. And at the end of the day, when you sat down at the start of January this year and said, okay, what do we want to achieve? We didn't want to be peaking in the middle of, May or April or whatever it was. We wanted to be here at this weekend, and that's what we've done now.
But is it almost in the dark moments like that, Mary, that the character and resilience kind of comes together, because it just brings everyone together? Because like we said earlier, you're chasing the same goal, and if when times were tough, you did pull together, and we've seen what's happened since. So in one sense, could a period like that be the makings of a team?
Yeah, it can be. I suppose resilience is a huge part of what we pride ourselves on as well. And at that time as well, we were going through an awful lot of injuries. We had a big pile of injuries there at one stage during the season. And our physio, Donal, has been absolutely exceptional. I'd say he was the busiest physio in the country there at one point. He's been brilliant getting us all back on the pitch. And obviously things like that, some people were going well, others were not going so well. But we had the note all within the group to put your hands around certain people and say, come here, you're good enough to do this. And other people pushed others on as well. So it was brilliant. And as you said, sometimes that can be the makings of a team, but the key thing for us was never to panic. We always knew what we were there for. We always knew what we were capable of, and we trusted in each other and the management team to be able to do that.
You talk about not panicking. I'm going to fast forward to All-Ireland quarter-final against Kilkenny up in Croke Park. What an incredible game. I was watching it here at home, and it ebbed and flowed. But for Cork to come out the right side of a tight game against one of the, let's say, another of the so-called big three in Kilkenny, the team that beat Cork in last year's All-Ireland final, what was the emotion after? Was it joy? Was it relief? What was it like, Amy?
I think the biggest feeling was relief, and it always is against those types of teams, that feeling of relief, the kind of feeling that you've put in all of that work, and those games are very, very tight. They only come down to a point or two. So I think the predominant feeling was definitely relief. But we were just delighted to get over the line. And I suppose against Galway and Kilkenny, they were two very different games against two very different styles on two very different days. So it's nice to know you've that work in the bank as well. You're able to get over different teams with different styles on different, weather conditions, for example. So it was good for us.
And what Cork did in those couple of games as well, you kind of broke the trend of, let's say, recent games against Kilkenny and Galway, where if Cork were leading at some point in the second half, they always seemed to come back and just pip Cork right at the end. But especially against Kilkenny, they were coming back at the end. They brought it, what was it, from 5 down to 1, but Cork held on and got the win. And to me, that from the outside looking in, it was like, that just seems like a big result for this group of Cork players to hold on to lead against a big team in a big game, So could you feel that yourselves within the group, that it was like, okay, we really do have this?
Yeah, I suppose, and it shows the character of the team as well when things like that happen. And again, it's something that hasn't happened overnight. It's something that we've been working on for a very long time. That mental strength, and then obviously the people on the line that are coming on to finish the job, that helps when you have 5 people coming onto the pitch that are genuinely going to change the game and genuinely going to change the tempo of the game. So that definitely helped us as well.
And then to beat that Galway team in the semi-final, it's been a good few years. I saw a stat afterwards that I think Galway won the last 7 or 8 games. So for Cork to beat Galway in a big game like that, again, just great for the group. But going into the All-Ireland final, to have the confidence of beating the last 2 teams, that must be an ideal position going into Sunday.
Definitely. I think we hadn't beaten Galway since 2017. There was a couple of draws here or there, and they had beaten us obviously every other time. And on some occasions they were genuinely the better team than us. They had the better squad, the better panel. But on other occasions, then we probably beat ourselves. So it's great to get over the line with that, and it's a good confidence builder going into a final, knowing that you've beaten the last 2 All-Ireland finalists, or champions, I should say. So yeah, it's brilliant for us.
The little matter of Waterford on Sunday, they have their own great story going on. Like I said earlier, first time into a senior final since the 1940s. But it's important to point out here, Waterford beat Cork in the Munster Championship earlier in the year, so they're obviously a really good outfit.
They're a brilliant outfit, and they've had, as you said, a very good journey. They're a fantastic team, and you know exactly what you're going to get from Waterford. They've beaten us already this year, and we beat them in last year's All-Ireland semi-final, but it was a tight game, and we've come across each other a good few times in the last few years in the Munster Championship as well, and it's always a very tight game, and it's a real battle against Waterford, and they have the energy around the middle, they have the legs around the middle, and then they bring a huge fight, but they also have the class as well, so it's going to be a huge battle next Sunday.
Have you any superstitions leading up to a game like this?
I have a few. I have a list as long as my arm, I'd say. I suppose the big one is I like to look at a picture of 2 magpies before a game. That might be a bit of a mad one, but yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
There was actually a trend in the Cork squad. I had Saoirse McCarthy on the podcast a couple of months ago, and she was saying if herself and Fiona are going to a game, and if they see magpies or they're going to training, they have to see
That's
us.
probably my fault. Yeah, I suppose like there's some things you can control, other things you can't control, and yeah, it's probably a silly one, but yeah, something that I just do.
And like I was saying earlier, Amy, in like this week of a final now, in terms of distractions, what do you do for downtime? Is it watch something on Netflix? Is it get out for a walk? Or is it do something else? Or
Yeah, I suppose as I said, I'll try to be as busy as I can with work. Then I suppose you're going to be training 2, 3, 4 nights that week anyway, or getting out doing something, maybe even in the gym. Might go to the pictures or the cinema, things like that. Yeah, just nothing too major. But as I said, I won't change too much from what I've done previously. It's just another week, it's just another game for us. So yeah.
Fantastic. Or the very best to look on Sunday, and hopefully you get to see the picture of the 2 magpies before we run out in Croke Park.
It'll be my wallpaper for the day, I'd say, on the day.
Brilliant, Amy. Thanks very much.
Thanks a million, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So first of all, Matthew, thanks for coming on to the podcast today. I just wanted to ask you about preparations before the All-Ireland final against Waterford at the weekend. Like, it's a huge game for Cork, aiming for the first All-Ireland since 2018.
Yeah, it's a massive occasion. Look, I suppose we got a lot of the kind of that has to do things out of the way early, like tickets and stuff like that. Like, so look, I'm very lucky. Like Marion McCarthy and Jennifer Megan did a majority of that for me. So all that kind of stuff is out of the way. Like, we're just headlong into the game. Look, they've beaten us already, and they're after a great campaign. I think they're going to have to be beaten once all year. So, like, we have a massive task against us. Like, so we're looking forward to it. Like, it's a third year in a row back in the final. Like, but we've nothing to show for it for the last 2. Like,
I suppose in general, like, going in as favourites, that's like a big incentive for Cork going into the final this Sunday. Like, Waterford are going for the first All-Ireland ever. You're going for your 29th All-Ireland in overall. So, like, does that add a bit of pressure to the team that they're going in as favourites?
not at all. That's only talk. That's outside of our dressing room. Like, so, like, we've no talk like that. The last 2 games we've gone in as underdogs, and we took no notice of that either. Like, we didn't use it as an incentive either. Look, we're too long in the tooth now for that. We have a lot of experience going up there, so look, we know there's a massive task ahead of us. Like, it's a massive opportunity for Waterford. And look, we were under fierce pressure last year against them in the Ireland semi-final, so we're under no illusion what's ahead of us. Like, the favourite tags, that's only a kind of immediate thing. We'll be honest, we take no notice, but we just, like, we're keen into is just getting a decent performance, and we're after doing that for the last few games. We've been under pressure, I suppose, since we got beaten by Galway in the All-Ireland series. We've been under pressure every game, so look, this is no different. Like, obviously it's on a more of a national scale now when it's been an All-Ireland final, but it's the same amount of pressure on us. Like, thank God the players seem to relish that.
You talk about pressure games there, and ever since really the Galway game and the first All-Ireland game in general, where you lost 112 to 12 points up in Pearse Stadium, like, you've mentioned it on interviews before that you've been in pressure cooker situations throughout the championship, really, against Downey, against Clare, then Kilkenny in the quarterfinal, then Galway in the semi-final. Do you think that kind of stands to the players going into the final?
Absolutely, it has to. Like, as I say, like, even Down, like, on paper we should be beaten Down, and I'm not being disrespectful to Down, like, but like, we should be beaten Down, but like, we were in the hardest going into that game because we knew it was do or die, and at the time, I suppose confidence was a small bit low, and we were still down a few players with the dual stuff and injuries, and like, they stood up and relished it, and I think it was really kind of the second half of that Down game. We've kicked on our season because of it, because look, Clare was a massive pressure job, and they were only after being beaten by Galway by a goal, and like, we had them put away by half time, which was huge, because like Clare are a fine, tough team, like, and we put them away, and as you said, then Kilkenny and Galway, they're obvious enough, but look, the confidence is there, definitely. Like, we're kind of coming right at the right time, but the fact we beat Kilkenny and Galway, I suppose, when the 2 top teams in it, it means nothing unless we get it over the line next week. Like.
And you look at even the game against Galway, which impressed most people, definitely in fairness, the shooting from Cork. Like you mentioned earlier on the season, that the shooting accuracy needs to be between 60 and 70%. That's a minimum. Cork managed 78% in the semi-final. That was a huge improvement, really. Only 4 misses, 1 wide in total. So that was a brilliant performance by forwards, to be fair, against Galway in the semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it has been our crux. Like, you know, like the league final and the game against Galway, the shooting was shocking. Like, and the players know themselves as well. Like, you have to give credit to Liam Cronin, Germany, and Teddy, and all the lads, all the coaches. Like, we've put a ferocious amount of work into it. Like, just steadying them up. I suppose the main thing we were looking at the start of the year is create chances, and we would have been confident enough that we, you know, if we created chances, we'd take advantage of them. But like, obviously we didn't. But we knew. You know, people, I suppose, outside the 4 walls of our dressing room were panicking. We weren't panicking. We just knew it was only a matter of time getting it right. And look, it was a massive improvement last week, especially in the second half. Our conversion rate was excellent in the second half against Galway when we were really under pressure. And you know, it's going to have to be something similar now for the final as well.
And another thing as well that impressed a lot of people was the defence against Galway. In fairness, like, you won 41 turnovers compared to Galway's 36. Galway only scored 5 scores from play overall. So that was an incredible achievement as well. Laura Tracy at the back there was very good. Saoirse McCarthy, obviously, in midfield, was very good. Libby Coppinger, full back. So the defence definitely played their part in the semi-final too.
The defence have been our rock all year. Like, you know, like if you get a score against us, like you earn it, in fairness to them. Like, and even in the conditions now, you'd be kind of weary about slipping around that, and we'd be left in for a goal. And we gave away 2 goals, and look, we were lucky they hit a crossbar for another one. But they really steadied up. You know, Maeve Callaghan went back in the corner, and when Laura Hayes came on as well, she drove on the team as well in a major way. Like, and look, we're lucky. I know the first talk about our bench and all that, but we're lucky that, you know, the players came back at the right time. But also, when those players were out, like, I think at one stage we were down to 16 players for injuries. Other players that probably wouldn't have got an opportunity took an opportunity, and like, we have fierce fighting at the moment for the first 15, but also for the first 20, which is, you know, it's a dream. Like, you know, because even we're talking now about the final, picking the team is very, very hard, and, you know, and that's a good complaint to have.
You mentioned the good complaint to have, and you mentioned that Laura Hayes came back as well. Like, all the players coming back in general this season. You look at Aisling Thompson or Cronin coming back from injury, as well as Zara, of course. Then you have the dual stars like Hannah Looney and Libby Coppinger, and Aoife Healy and Nora Callaghan, to be fair, are playing at the weekend as well, and are fully focused on the final this weekend as well. So to have a full squad available to you, and you use 5 subs against Galway as well, that must be brilliant going to the final against Waterford as well.
It is, because look, I suppose we were playing down, and there was obviously a fixture clash when the ladies football were playing Galway, and we potentially had 19 players fit out of a panel of 32, and that's 100% legit. Like, that's where we were. So having it the way it is, even for training, like, we were very lucky. The Cork Miners, Jordy and the lads, like, left us take. We took 5 or 6 of the Cork Miners, won the All Ireland in training with us as well, and, you know, fairness to them, they were a great bonus to have around the place. But that's how depleted the squad was. We had to get players in to even just make up numbers in training. So, but all these players back now again, it is great. And, you know, look, it just puts a spring in your step when everyone's out there fighting for competition. Like, they have a great camaraderie. Like, but there's a fierce, you know, fight there as well for our positions.
Take it back to the group stage for a minute there. Like, even between April and June in all competitions, Cork lost 4 games in a row after a good run in the league. Then you win that game against Down. Like, even in that 4-game spell, 3 against Galway and 1 against Waterford and Munster, were you kind of worried about the team's form in a way, taking back to that few months in general?
Yeah, I suppose the results were disappointing. There's no question about that. Like, we never lost faith, and it was like, you know, we had a few words after a few of the matches, like, with effort and all that. Like, but we, like, you know, I suppose we've done it before. We did it last year. Like, we went off shooting the lights out early in the year, and by the time the end of the year, like, I know we got to an Ireland final, but we weren't as kind of, I suppose, effective at the end of the year. Like we never panicked. Like, we were, like, you know, there was people panicking around us, but like, we just said, look, judge us in August, don't judge us in April. Like, and you know, the players really, you know, when we didn't panic, the players kind of didn't panic either. Like, you know, as I say, we were under fierce pressure to get results because we knew, but, you know, there was no major panic there. Like that, we knew that what the quality of the squad is, and you know, the players we have, like, they're tremendous players, And we knew kind of if we could get over a couple of weeks that the players would start tripping back in eventually, like, and they have done. And even though the players probably weren't available for our selection because of the injury they had, like, we still had Aisling Thompson back training, like, and she demands the best outsider, like Laura Tracy's the same. So that there was no let up in the training sessions. Even though we were losing games, we were still finding positives out of it and work-ons, like, and the work-ons were the main key of it, because, look, we have to be honest with ourselves, both management and players, like, we have to see where we're struggling and how to rectify it. And we had long conversations about it and see how we got around it. And look, thankfully, it's after working up till now.
Made a very interesting point about peaking at the right time as well. You've seen it in hurling with Limerick. You've seen it with the men's footballers of Kerry and Dublin as well. It's kind of the same with yourself, like, in that spell, losing 4 games in a row, but then winning against Kilkenny and Galway in pressure cooker situation games. Is that kind of a thing as well? Timing your own right in the All Ireland Series up until the final.
I would love to say that we're geniuses that we planned this, like, but it's not. It's just simple the fact that the amount of the players that were down, and I suppose, like, we, to be fair, like, we had a different, I think there's only 4 of us so with management stay around this year, so there's a total new management, a total new SNCs, the whole lot, and it's just everyone embedding themselves into it. Like, we got off to a great start in the league, as you say, but as the time went on, it was just about embedding our system into the players, and just a matter of getting used to it. And we did with a ferocious amount of video analysis on it, and just showing them where we were slipping up, and just trying to rectify that, and trying to perfect it to a big degree. Like, and look, we seem to be kind of getting on top of the new system, and with the players around us as well, and players putting under pressure. It seems to be working at the moment. So look, just hopefully we can continue on for one more game. Like.
Obviously, there's a lot of West Cork involvement going to the final on Sunday, but one that's really stood out from Cork Rovers is Saoirse McCarthy got a player of the match in the semi-final against Galway. She's been immense all season from midfield. Obviously, played wing back last year and was very good as well. So, like, what sort of influence has she had on the team in general? And she seems to be enjoying her camogie at the moment in general, because she's on brilliant form.
She is. She came back from a great year last year, and she had a great year with MTU as well. And look, she's a different kind of a character altogether. Like, she's very fierce, bubbly, and always messing up for the laugh. Like, but when it comes to the job to be done, she's excellent. Like, we've played her wing back, we played her in midfield, we played wing forward, and we actually played her on the edge of the D as well. She's just very fierce, versatile, and nothing phases her. Like, she doesn't get nervous or anything like that. She just has a job to do. She loves poking the ball, loves playing camogie, like, and that's what you want. Her club mate is the same. Fiona Keaton, like, she, we all get tense before matches, and she could be horizontal inside the dressing room. Like, there's nothing affects them, like, this, which is great. It's important that we've kind of some level heads, but, like, to be fair to Saoirse, like, she has really driven on, and, like, when she got going against Kilkenny, we went with her, and the same against Galway when we really needed her. She was there, and we all kind of follow suit with her then as well.
And going back into the final on Sunday against Waterford, like, obviously you lost them in the Munster Championship 118 to 115 down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh earlier in the season. So have you learned much from that game, or does that game kind of go out the window once Sunday comes?
There's a kind of element of a few different elements. I suppose, look, we got beaten by 3 points, but I think that flattered us. They were a far better team than us on the day. Like, that physically, everything blew us out of it. Like, we weren't complacent going into that game either, and they just blew us out of it. Their personnel is probably the same, but there's tweaks, there's difference in their teams, the same with ourselves. Like, so look, we definitely learn out of it. We know what they can bring. They probably one of the best hurlers in the country in Beck Carlton. Lorraine Bray is not far behind her, and they have a few more. Abby Flynn and Neve Rocket. There's a good few of them there. So look, they like, they're another team like Galway. Like, if you want to go physical with them, they love it. If you want to go hurling with them, they love it. So it's just, it's for us to come up now with the system, try to be as competitive as you can, and just come up a game plan and try and stick to it.
And just a final question, like, in fairness, like, it's your third All-Ireland final in a row. Cork experience at this level, Waterford haven't reached it since 1945. It's kind of a novel situation for them. But your players will be more experienced going to the final. Is that kind of a factor over Waterford in general?
again, like you can look at it both ways. Definitely, we're used to it. This is our 5th national title or national final in a row. We are used to the big occasion. Like, going up there, like, you still, no matter what time you go up to Croke Park, there's a great excitement and nervousness about it. But like, I suppose they're going to bring like an unbelievable hunger. Like the first time in 70-something years, and I heard a few interviews there. Like, they have to treat it like it might be their last time. So, like, that's a massive incentive for them coming up here. Like, but I think we've 32 on the panel. We've a couple of lads were injured to make up the 32. But 20 of the 32 have no All-Ireland medal. So that's a big enough incentive for us as well.
Yeah, definitely so. And the whole of Cork will be cheering on Sunday. Matthew, thanks for your time on the Star Sport podcast here. And best of luck on Sunday for the All-Ireland final. And the whole Cork and the whole of West Cork in general will be cheering you on.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. And now let's take a look ahead to, Kieran, what is a bumper edition of the Southern Star Sport coming out this Thursday.
Yeah, huge edition, 28 pages of West Cork sports are there. It's GA heavy. It really is, because we've had such a busy weekend in the county football championships and the Carbery championships. So for all our listeners and all our sports fans and GA fans listening or watching this podcast, this Thursday's Southern Star is a must read, because we give the star treatment to the big local games. So huge spreads, plenty of pictures, loads of reactions. So if you missed anything from the weekend, Thursday's Southern Star will fill you in. So all those games are covered. Check out Hawley O'Sullivan's reaction to the weekend's big games. He was at the Castlehaven Carbery Rangers game on Friday, and he went to Newcestown Downies on Saturday. So in his column, he gives his tactical breakdown of those games and where they were won and lost. Obviously, we have a preview of the All-Ireland camogie final, and taking pride of place in that preview is a really good colour piece by Matthew Hurley on Saoirse McCarthy from Courcey Rovers. Matthew spoke with Sarah Hayes from Courcey's and former Cork camogie manager Paddy Murray on that, to tell us more about Saoirse, who's been in top form in the last couple of weeks. And sticking with GA for a second, we have a 2-page preview of the Carbery Junior A Hurling Championship, which is throwing in this weekend. So very much like what we did with the Junior A football last week, it's a profile of all 11 teams that are in competition for the Flyer Nighting. Road bowling is busy at the moment, another All-Ireland series coming up. And 2 more stories that I just want to flag is first, Limerick hurler Kyle Hayes, 6 days after winning the All-Ireland, or the 4 in a row with the Limerick hurlers in Croke Park, he was making his harness racing debut in Manch. So we have that in Thursday's Southern Star. And also the Irish Outdoor Athletics Championships were on the weekend just gone. And gold again for Nicola Tuttle. Nicola just can't stop winning gold. Like, it's incredible. She's had a brilliant year, and this is her 9th national title, which is only 19 years of age. So we have a full report from that. There's another medal came down to West Cork too. Shane Howard Bandon Athletic Club in the long jump. But unfortunately, the Healy sisters, Joan and Phil, both missed out in their respective distances and events. But we have a full report and roundup in Thursday's Star. So action-packed, Dylan.
As always. And if you're further afield or can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe to the Southern Star and get it on your laptop, tablet, or phone. As I said earlier, we have a great offer on at the moment. The details are up on screen now. If you want further details, head to southernstar.ie/offers, where you can see that you'll be able to get the premium subscription for 50% off for your first 2 months. So that's €1 a week for the best West Cork sport and news. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Thanks for listening.